Hello and welcome to the Federal. You're watching Off the Beaten Track, a program in which we pick one issue and then look at it from various facets or 360 degrees. India is a democracy, so obviously we have elections. We have just completed the elections in Haryana that we're already beginning to prepare for the next one in Maharashtra most probably. The schedule may be announced just after the end of the Dussehra celebrations. After a few months, there will be Jharkhand, there will be Delhi, and then towards the end of 2025, we are scheduled to have the elections in Bihar. So whenever there are elections, there obviously is also coverage. There's also a lot of television coverage. There are also a lot of opinion polls, surveys. Then once the model code of conduct comes into play, the surveys stop. Then everybody is waiting for the day of voting. When voting gets over everywhere, we will have then the exit polls for which everybody waits with bated breath. Finally, we have counting. Quite often, and this has happened very recently, that the exit polls have had one set of findings which have not been borne by the final results. We will try to understand this. India has a long tradition, three decades plus tradition of surveys and opinion polls and exit polls. Of late, there has been a lot of discussion that are our pollsters getting it correctly? Is the journalist who is going to the field, are they able to read what is happening? Why are they failing? These are certain important things that we need to understand. Who else can there be but one of the tallest and one of the brightest pollsters of India, Yashwant Deshmukh? Welcome to my program.
Thank you, Dada. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
You have been the founder director of C-Voter, one of India's most reputed polling agencies conducting surveys, I think for more than 25 years, if I'm not wrong. You would have started sometime towards the late 1990s, early 2000, that is possibly. Pardon me if I'm wrong on getting the date.
We started in 94, Dada. So this is almost like 30 years now.
Yeah, so it's not almost 30 years exactly, 94 to 2024. Yeah. Exactly. But yes, in 94, it was very nascent.
We just started. Yeah, exactly. Just baby
just
steps.
Kind of started. Yeah, at that time, we had only the big daddy of Indian polling, that is Pranay Rai, Vinod Dua, and the others.
Yeah.
So let's begin with Haryana. Every polling agency, every survey which was done, every exit poll, every reporter which went to the field, every anchor who traveled through the state of Haryana, they said that it's a Congress win. The debate was only over the extent of victory, the number of seats they are going to win. Less than 50, 50, 55, 55 or 60 or 60 plus. Eventually, on the day of counting, till about 11 o'clock, people were still saying, wait till 3 p.m. This will all turn. Yeah. It didn't turn. So let us try to understand that what happened. Did the media, did the polling agencies fail to reach the right people, the right sample to get it? As somebody who's engaged in this field, as we discussed for 3 decades more, what really went wrong? Where were all of us wrong? It's not a question that you are primarily a pollster now. Yeah. I am primarily a journalist. I'm not getting into it. Even I got it wrong.
So I'm Dada.
Yeah.
Dada, I'm happy, the way you put it, because everybody got it wrong. When I say everybody, that started from the polling to the journalist, to the editor, to the reporters, and like that. And then when you say that everybody is got it wrong, then there has to be some elements of uniformity in the observations that probably we misread, or where the crux is not a unipolar thing that some polling agency got some data wrong. It's not like that. First thing is like that. So obviously, I will start with the very first thing that I always tell all my audience that what exactly do we expect from polling and what should be expected from the polling. First of all, I being a journalist, that my transition from journalism to polling started only because I felt polling was an extended part of the reporting day. Just like a reporter, I might be interviewing 10 odd people, but as a polling agency, I am interviewing 10,000 people. And when I'm talking so many people, I should be getting it right. Now, getting it right, when I say yes, but what should I be getting it right? So the science of polling starts and stops at the assessment of the vote share. That's it. Vote to seat conversion, as we call it. This is a tricky thing to get in. And this is something which is not part of the science or the polling science. It is something which is a mathematical extrapolation of a vote share into the seat share. That too in the first past the post system that we have inherited from the Britishers. By the way, in UK also, the polling agencies do not tell the seat share. It's the statisticians who extrapolate the vote into seats, And while everybody was celebrating that Ab Ki Baar 400 Par got okay in UK this time, but actually UK polling agencies are, having a serious discussion because they got the vote shares wrong. Because Tories actually got defeated, but the Labour did not win the kind of vote share that the polls had predicted. Now, coming back to Haryana, the three things, Dada, which we projected in our tracker and eventually in the exit poll. Number one, that the 10 years, even after 10 years incumbency, the BJP vote share is not going down. It is actually going up by 1% or 2%.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, that Congress is having a huge tsunami kind of a tidal swing, 12 to 13%, which is actually coming at the expense of the others or the smaller regional parties, like JJP, NLD and others who got anti-BJP vote last time. But as JJP went with the BJP, it was taken as an insult to the mandate that people who had voted for the JJP. And that entire thing shifted to the Congress. Third thing that we said was a bipolarization of the state, because last election, the others and independent polled almost like 40% votes. And BJP and Congress together polled only 60%. And we projected that this time in the bipolarization, these two parties are polling almost 80%. And others are reduced to less than 20% votes. Now, if you take into these three
if I can just clarify, just put a mention for the benefit of our audience, a large number of these, the vote share which went to the others was also backed by the independents.
Exactly. So if you take these three
rebel candidates.
So if you take these three major findings of a polling thing and you take to any known person or global expert, he will say 100% marks to, the data crunchers. Now, where did it go wrong? It went wrong because...
Can I just interrupt you to bring in one fact from the history of polling in India?
Yeah.
Very early when the polling started, one of the first really agencies was this research body called the CSDS. Yeah. Now, they were conducting the polling, but the interpretation of what you said, that this is what happens in England, the interpretation of that data, the conversion from vote share to number of seats was being done by a statistician. I think
Rajiv Karandikar. You are right.
Rajiv Karandikar.
Rajiv Karandikar.
Associated, I think so.
With Indian Statistical Institute.
Yeah.
So he was there, and CSDS never really owned up the seat share projections. Yes. They said that's not our job. Now, CSDS being a quasi-academic government body where, they don't have to really think of the profitability and in that way, but polling agents, and the polling agencies generally, when they are commissioned by the channels, they say we are not going to spend money on two different things. You are doing the poll, you better come up with the seat share projection. Even though we always start the program saying that take the seat share projections with not just a pinch but a truckload of salt, because these are the limitations. These are not a part of it. But coming back to what happened in Haryana now, with the large three findings of our numbers were collaborated by every reporter on the ground and everybody, so was on that. And so with 10 years of incumbency, no government was ever repeated after 10 years in Haryana. I mean, forget about anything else. But eventually it came down to micromanagement and mismanagement, both ways. I mean, the micromanagement of the BJP and mismanagement of the Congress. Now, numbers or the data is something which can take you only to this far. After that, within the same vote, a micromanagement and mismanagement can change the number of seats here. And this is precisely what has happened in Haryana.
Right.
Now, what has happened, largely speaking, yes, BJP and the RSS network, they don't give up, they pull out, and that is why their vote share actually went up after 10 years of being in power. They pull out. Their relative is very good. Means whatever their support base is, they ensure that a saturation turnout is there. They pull them out. They encourage them to ensure that they go to the polling booth. But the problem on the other side of the spectrum was the Congress. The factionalism of the Congress, the infighting of the Congress, the rebel candidates put up by the Congress stalwart themselves. So the story goes that Mr. Hooda actually never wanted Congress to win a comfortable majority because he was afraid that if the Congress crosses a simple, not just simple, but 50-60 majority, then the High Command will replace him with Kumari Selja or something. So first thing that they did was both the factions they fought on the ticket distribution, and then they started ensuring the defeat of each other's candidates. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, if you look into the Lok Sabha elections, the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress, they contested together in Lok Sabha.
Right.
And if you look into the current election where Aam Aadmi was not accommodated by the Congress, by the way, they asked, of course, they started with 20 seats, but they eventually got settled down for 5 seats in Haryana. But the negotiations failed because Congress said that we will decide which 5 seats you have to contest, while Aam Aadmi Party said that no, we want to contest the winnable seats. So those 5 seats, which one has to be consulted with us? And that is where the talks broke off. Now, Aam Aadmi polled almost about 2% votes in Haryana.
Yes.
And they were directly responsible for loss of 5 seats to Congress.
The same 5.
Yeah, exactly the same 5. Now, the reports that I have, the number crunchy that there are at least 17 seats on the last count which the Congress has lost due to the rebel candidates, where the rebel candidates polled more than the margin of defeat. All right. Now, 17 plus 5, the tally is 22 seats. Now, 22 seats, you have given a gift wrap to the BJP.
Okay.
All right. Even if you could manage to flip 11 seats out of that, just flip out of 22, you managed to flip 11, half the seats, the Haryana numbers flip over.
Switch.
Right.
BJP's number become the Congress's and
Congress number become the BJP. So obviously, there was a micromanagement by the BJP for a better turnout. And they were micromanaged their rebels better. They managed to ensure that their rebels were pacified. They sit down, they do not contest, and so on and so forth. And there was a complete mismanagement on the Congress part, where I believe they were trying to do a controlled detonation where they could damage the other faction within the Congress while getting unscratched through that. While in politics, we know for sure there is nothing called controlled.
There is no limited damage that you can do.
There is no limited. And what better example of that than the BJP, which suffered in Lok Sabha election in Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh because of precisely the same reason. It was the infighting of the BJP, which pulled down the Rajasthan number, which pulled down the Uttar Pradesh numbers. Because when you look into the vote share, again, in the Lok Sabha elections, BJP actually polled 10% votes more than Congress in Rajasthan. Now, if I tell you that BJP is polling in Rajasthan 10% more votes than the BJP, there is no way you will say they are going to win equal number of seats in Rajasthan.
That's right.
Same is the case of BJP in Uttar Pradesh. We said they are going to poll 45%, no less than that. But when a party is polling 45% in UP, historically which way the seats go.
Yes.
Right. But infighting and that controlled detonation, which some of the BJP leaders thought that they can do, there is nothing called control. And that puts up to the big question of Congress snatching the defeat from the jaws of victory in Haryana. BJP got lucky because...
It's not the first time that the Congress has done something like that.
Yeah.
They did like this in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh in 2023.
Yeah. Exactly. So BJP is a quick learner in that way.
Okay.
So I was just talking to Nirja Chaudhary ji, and I mean, of course, a common friend and a very dear friend and a
Yes.
great journalist,
She has been on
And
this program also.
yeah, so Nirja ji was pointing out what things work for the BJP, and the first pointer that she said on the work for the BJP, apart from the Congress mismanagement, of course, was that RSS was back in action. Now, when you say RSS is back in action, that only means one thing: that they are a quick learner. They realize that the internal problems, quote unquote, of the BJP in UP and Rajasthan did a lot of damage. And that was the only reason why BJP did not get the majority. Because if you add the UP and Rajasthan 40 odd seats into the tally, BJP becomes 280 and NDA becomes 325 or 30, right? And then the entire question of 2024 surprise is up in the air. There is no more surprise in 2024 anymore. So they are quick learners. They did what they had to do, and then they left it on the Congress to mismanage and squander the election on their own.
We get now, a good understanding. I think you really put the, hammer on the nail by saying micro and mismanagement. One party did micromanagement, the BJP, and the Congress did mismanagement. Now let's move on elsewhere. This entire issue of vote share and seats.
Right.
Till as the counting was going on in Haryana, several people who had actually believed that the Congress is going to win kept arguing, kept pointing that the Congress vote share is 2%, 3% higher. It did not end eventually 2% or 3% higher. It was 0.8% lower than the BJP, 39.9 and 39.1.
And if you add in the CPM vote to that, because CPM contested an alliance partner, it is almost like at par.
Almost the same.
Almost at par.
The same kind of thing. During the Lok Sabha elections in Odisha, we also had the assembly elections.
Right.
The assembly elections was won by a fairly comfortable margin in terms of seats by the BJP.
But in vote share, BJP led.
But the Biju Janata Dal,
they got more votes.
As a pollster, as a cephalogist, please explain this to our viewers that more vote share, why not seats? Why doesn't it always come?
That's the biggest problem of the first past the post system, and we have got several examples of that. Like, for example, Karnataka. Every time that BJP formed a government in Karnataka, Congress actually has got more votes than BJP in Karnataka. Right. And we've got many other, historically speaking.
We will keep on, we walk into the cupboard where the data is kept, we'll keep on finding instances.
Like, for example, BJP's meteoric rise in the 80s. You remember the historic election of 1984 when BJP got 2 seats. Now, the problem is, in 2 seats, people forget that even after 2 seats, BJP became the second largest party in India after Congress in terms of vote share. In 1984 election. Now, in 1984, BJP was runner-up in 96 seats. And by the time 1989 happened, BJP's vote share hardly got up by 1 or 2%. There was no meteoric rise, but the Congress tide came down. And when the Congress tide came down, BJP automatically won 84 out of those 96 seats, where it stood second in 1984. So even without having a very meteoric rise in the vote share, BJP managed to take its tally from 2 Lok Sabha to 84 Lok Sabha between 1984 and 1989. So this is the first past the post system. It has this inherent flaw that there is no direct correlation of vote share and seat share. And this is why I always say that the survey science, the limitations of the survey research is that we can just gauge and map you and tell you that this is the vote share as per the survey within this margin of error. So when we said that Congress is getting a 13% sin and Congress got, with a margin of error of 3%, Congress got 11%. So Congress got 2% less swing. By the way, I will come back to this why. 2% less swing, but it was within the permitted margin of the statistical science, and we got it right in that way. Now, even in Lok Sabha election, we got even that vote share correct. Absolutely bang on. Still the seat share went wrong. Now, why this even 2% less votes that the Congress came in? The reason is in the micromanagement. What happens, Dada, is that in the field, the common man of any area who is a supporter of a Congress leader, a diehard supporter of a Congress leader and a traditional Congress voter, anti-BJP voter, but the Congress denies the ticket to that particular person. And that voter goes out and it votes for that person, He is an anti-BJP, he or she is anti-BJP voter, and he comes out and tells our researcher, he or she doesn't tell, I have voted for Congress rebel candidate who is that. She simply says, I voted for the Congress candidate. Because in their heart, they still consider that person as a Congress candidate. Because he or she was the Congress candidate earlier, or sitting MLA earlier, or the front runner in the ticket distribution, or the Congress leader with whom I have had a connection for 20, 30 years. I consider that person as a Congress leader and I say I voted for Congress. Now that 2% kind of a gap of assessment is not because people lied. No, people do not lie. In their own understanding, they voted for Congress. It's a very innocent way of telling or getting.
I think you have explained that voters, people who are participating in surveys, have a way and a certain reason, raison d'etre,
Exactly.
to mislead. I'm using the word mislead, quote unquote, mislead the surveyor. There are questions, which are raised repeatedly at a very serious level. These are not, wild charges, that possibly we need to relook the manner in which we draw up our sample. Possibly what is happening, especially in exit polls, we are doing a lot of random sampling.
Right.
People coming out from the booth. So obviously, given a society like of India's diversity, where everybody has a different extent of being underprivileged, different caste groups have different things, and their approach of, say for instance, the Dalits is completely different to elections from, say, the Brahmins. I've taken two extreme, social, groups. Do you feel the need that we need to rework the manner in which we draw up a sample size?
I'm glad that you asked this question because, exit poll is just one small thing that we generally do. I cannot tell about it, but you know very well that we do a tracker and, and it's a daily thing. We interview in 11 languages every day, all across India, on Caddy. And yes, traditionally, there are demographic sections in the society, the response rate is less. Traditionally. For example, the biggest issue that we face always is the female response rate, because it is almost impossible for a female in the countryside to answer to a male stranger researcher standing outside the polling booth or even talking on a daily basis on telephone. What are the chances or odds, Dada, you see, for a female in Indian countryside pick up the phone and
I think very little, very small,
and answer the question? What are the odds? We are a conservative traditional society.
Is that possible?
So exactly, that is why you would be happy to know that our research industry, which was pretty much male skewed in terms of everything, but during the COVID, particularly when we started experimenting, because nobody was able to, during the lockdown, to come to the office, we decentralized our CATI operation, which gave us the chance to let the researchers sit in their own home and then interview, patching our calls from our call centers. And that opened up a possibility for us to hire more and more female researchers. So I am happy to share with you that, say, all along, while the researcher workforce used to be hardly about 20% to 30% female, right now the C-Voter CATI female researcher force is almost 80% female. That's a big difference that happened. And obviously, that has increased the female response rate. And, quality of the response as well. Not just because females are telling more, but also because females are good workers. I mean, arguably, this is my own assessment in my industry. They are much more sincere workers in interviewing, more empathetic. They get trained well, and they ask the questions in the right way, and they do not apply too much of judgment in that.
You will get a lot of thumbs up, from a lot of our female viewers, and a lot
Yes.
of thumbs down from the males.
males. I don't know about the males thumbs down, but you know what? I mean, sometimes I figured out that, and this is without any malice towards anybody, in such way. I think the male workforce, particularly in this country, takes a lot many things for granted, and they do not have the fire in the belly to get the work done because of the lack of the competition from females in many of the professional areas, and our area has been one of them. So when we started giving opportunities to highly educated housewives who were not in a position to travel to a call center, but they were in their home, but had 6 hours every day to some good research job, they lapped it up. And the way they go about the thing, we can see the fire in the belly, how sincere they are. So that's how it is. I mean, and that has changed a lot. But coming to your original question of their demographics, yes, the problem of the minorities, asking or getting interviewed, and that is a problem. Dalit voters, tribal voters, these are
minorities. You mean religious minorities or some other different types of minorities?
No, religious, largely the Muslims, I would say.
You
have a problem. These are the problems on the field, which we have to say. So there are. We have to pick up more booths in order to make sure that we get enough samples from the tribal areas, the Dalit seats, in order to get better samples from those seats, we do target sampling,
Okay.
And after doing all this, at best, Dada, you can get is the correct vote share estimate, which we get. Problem is, even after doing this much, we do 365 days tracker and then 1 day of the exit polling. Even after doing that, the entire hard work goes down the drain when the first past the post system comes into the play. And first of all, you get struck with the conversion. And second, which I believe is a limitation of the data, when there is a mismanagement or micromanagement on the polling, no data can capture that. As I said, when you put up a Congress rebel to defeat your own Congress candidate, the voter who polled for the Congress rebel is innocently coming out and telling that they voted for a Congress candidate. In the data, you get as a Congress vote, but you cannot do anything about it, that which is a rebel candidate and how much that rebel candidate is going to damage because on every seat there is some or other and hundreds of independents everywhere. How can you gauge that? It's only after the result you start actually looking into the micro nuances of all these things and realize if the vote share gap is big enough between the two parties. For example, Jammu and Kashmir, we got it bang right?
Yes.
It's the same election, same methodology, same set of people, analysis, same data, same processing, same programming, same algorithms, whatever you can say. But Jammu and Kashmir, the vote share gap between the BJP and the opposition in Jammu and between the National Conference and the opposition in Kashmir was so big that all these independent others and all those things, they went for toss.
No. I am wanting to ask you a question which may be slightly beyond the brief.
Yeah.
But for a long time, as a political journalist, I have felt, and in a few articles that I have written, I've said that there must be a debate in India whether the first past the post system needs to be put behind us and we need to work towards some kind of a proportional system of election.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good idea?
It's a very good idea. It's actually, if you look into the advanced democracies, I understand the proportional representation also brings in a kind of a fragmented or fractured verdicts, and then the different sides of the people are forced to sit down together and form
Governance
the
is
government.
more consensual, that can one say?
Exactly. So PR is definitely is a very good deal, but at the same time they tend to give more fractured mandates. So many people lose their appeal that okay, the mandates are not decisive, and that's what it makes it clutter and people get problem. But I feel that does a lot more justice to parties which poll well but do not get enough seats. For example, I will take example of Congress and BJP both. Now, first past the post system did a gross injustice to BJP in 1984 election.
That's right.
Where even after polling, so many votes, 7-8% vote, they got only 2 seats in parliament. So the same first past the post system did a gross injustice to Congress in 2014 and 19. Because even after polling 20% vote, they were not even getting 10% of the seats to make Rahul Gandhi as the leader of opposition.
That's right.
Right. So of course, PR is a very good thing. There has to be electoral reform, much more debate to be done. But one thing which I actually suggested in writing and otherwise, in personal conversation with many people who were the stakeholder or the, I won't say decision maker, but at least those who were working on the electoral reform panel and other things, is that we have a golden historic opportunity right now, Dada. 33% reservation that has been approved by the parliament for the females. Unfortunately, the idea that is flawed, that good idea is flawed because they say they will do a 33% on the rotation system of the seats. That means randomly every time 1/3 seats will be renominated for the females.
Exactly.
Now, this is a disaster. I tell you why. Because we know in India, people have a tendency, politicians have a tendency to win in wave elections, and they do not work as a representative on the ground. This is why almost two-thirds of sitting MLAs and MPs, if repeated, they lose the election because they are pathetic track record of working in the field. Now,
so shifting,
if you will do
rotating the seats, what you are trying to say is that going to make commitment to the constituency even less.
Exactly, it will be a complete disaster because every person
very important point which you have made.
will stop working in the constituency because he or she will say, I don't know next time this seat is going to be me or somebody else.
No,
there is zero commitment, absolutely nada, zilch commitment by the elected representatives to the constituency now. So that's a disaster. What should be done is that they should increase the parliamentary size and by 33%. Add new seats. All right.
Okay.
And one suggestion is just like we have fixed seats for ST and SC, we fixed up the seats, the women representation. All right. At least that will ensure the commitment to the
commitment.
But even better idea it would be that if we can fuse the first past the post system and the PR system, where we have 543 seats the way it is right now, but we have 33% seats for the females
in the
allocated on the vote share basis, like the first, which they have polled in the election. That is the proportional representation. So that will be the perfect, way of mixing. First of all, female reservation is 33% honored. Second, PR system is enabled so that even the smaller parties, smaller stakeholders get a say in the parliament.
Yes.
And third, is even more critical that when you implement these things and you get a parliament with the females of different parties coming in. You remember last time when the female reservation bill was killed by many parties. It was because Laluji and Mulayam Singh ji and many others said that we need OBC reservation within the female reservation. Now, this PR system takes it out of that, because then suppose I am party A and
the onus is on the political party.
Bonus is with me. If I've got 5 female MPs or 10 or 15, it is up to me. I want to nominate 5 Muslim or 5 OBC or 5 Dalit. It is my, not a constitutional mandated thing, So it solves many problems. So what you are asking me, I am taking it one step ahead. I'm trying to fuse PR with the 33% reservation so that a lot many solutions.
That's very interesting. Very interesting, and I hope that before the next Lok Sabha election, the government initiates very serious discussion at an all-party
Exactly.
level to discuss these things, because I think everybody realizes that everybody has faced the brunt of the first past the post system.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
BJP, the
Yeah.
Congress, every party. Now,
Yeah.
moving on beyond, we cannot, I need to start moving toward the concluding part of our program. But how do I leave out the elephant in the room? Artificial intelligence and polling. I was just reading, I really could not make much sense that there are certain elements of artificial intelligence which are being used by pollsters in the United States for the presidential elections. That they have been also done to some extent. Some bigger, computer, analysis has been done for the previous election also. That the Trump versus Joe Biden elections 4 years ago. You have definitely explored this, and you also have one foot in the United States,
Right.
as a pollster there. Can you explain this to us, and that if artificial intelligence can help us chisel polling into a better scientific tool?
Well, definitely yes. Provided we also understand the limitations and the good things and the bad things about
Of
it.
course.
Right now it's a blind man's elephant. Everybody is running away with its own way of doing the things.
That's right.
So I was just reading a very fantastic paper by a couple of students, graduate students in US, and what they have done is that they have tried to use artificial intelligence to create respondents. Now, what they are trying to do is that they read the profiles of different people on the social media, how they react, and they will create a profile for, say, for example, Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay, and they will read your social media post, and they will know use that how Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay is going to react to a certain situation or certain
Yes.
question. All right, and then they will give stimulus to that engine and try to see if Kamala Harris has said that, where he is going to vote or she is going to vote, and like that. Now, this is cutting edge technology, but still, I was a bit skeptical for one simple reason. No matter how good AI can be, if you read the tagline of C-Voter, it is like we read the pulse of the nation. But the tagline of C-Voter Foundation, the CSR work for academic research that we do, is the line from sometimes tagged to Vayu Puran and sometimes tagged to Chanakya. I still have to figure out where it belongs to, but it is the Munde Mater Bhinna. That each skull has a different brain. Basically, each organic person has a different shade of opinion. I believe that human emotion is very organic thing, and machines cannot replicate that. What they can do, help us. What we are working on, like you rightly said that even in the US, but apart from US also, we are also investing in our fair share of revenues into figuring out how to use AI further. What we are trying to use it is to basically make more data points of the verbatims. For example, you know very well that people in India love to talk,
Yes.
particularly, industry faces a problem.
Our viewers
that
will say
people
the
do
two
not.
of them, the two of you also love to talk.
Yeah. But C-Voter has a problem of the riches, because when we say we are calling from C-Voter and we are doing a survey for, say, Federal, for example, like, people know us as a media brand, and they love to talk, and they feel like that, okay, whatever they are saying is going to impact because it is going to be published and talked about. So they say they love to talk. Now, in that binary question, that are you happy with the performance of the prime minister, they never answer directly in yes and no. They give you a complete thing. I was impressed with him, but he did that. Oh, so you are unhappy. No. That doesn't mean that I'm unhappy, but they have a quite, they spend, on an average, our problem is that our 10-minute interview actually stretches to 17 and 18 minutes on an average, because people love to give the explanation. Right. Now, in data point, it is captured as yes, no, can't say, but there is a huge amount of verbatim recording or audio, which actually gets into qualitative input sometimes, but it doesn't really get thoroughly analyzed in that way. So we are trying to see if AI can transcribe and analyze and get us more inputs from what the reason that people give for saying a no or saying I am undecided.
So basically, using AI more for data analysis and for data crunching and being able to do these things much faster than what a human mind and a human
Exactly.
body would be able to do.
Exactly.
For instance,
Particularly for us,
you know,
because also because you know
yes,
the deadlines in TV industry and other now I mean it is
the
mind-boggling.
deadlines
You
are of
know.
yesterday. That's what I used to say.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
deadline is always past.
Yeah, deadline is always past.
Yeah. So one last question. You know, in fact, you would have already
Yeah.
started preparing for Maharashtra for polling, conducting
Yeah.
surveys, and then the exit polls. What is the one new thing that you are considering to introduce, and what is the one thing which you will not do again?
Well, first of all, that we are definitely considering to introduce is the possibility of large amount of rebel candidates all over again.
Okay.
And this time, when somebody says I voted for Congress, we are going to ask you voted for the Congress official candidate or Congress rebel candidate.
Congress is
You
real
know.
or Congress is rebel?
Yeah. So that is definitely on the cards. But jokes apart, yes, I mean every election, Dada, good or bad, we end up learning because there is so
Yes.
much to learn. The best part of democracy is that people always humble you, no matter what.
That's
You know, the collective wisdom of this country, of our people, is very humbling. You know, and we end up learning about the issues. Like for example, one big change that we have already started doing after after many years is that all issues are not electoral issues. So
Mhm.
when you ask what is the issue on your mind, my mind issue is X, but that is not the issue which I am voted for today. So we have already started splitting those issues, like issues and the issues you voted on, you know, to understand more precisely what exactly worked. Then we have started capturing when did you decide to vote on, you know, was it a last moment decision? Was it like, you know, in that way? Then in the trackers, we have started analyzing the turnout factor that, you know,
Okay.
if you will ask, every person says that, yes, I voted. Every person says I will vote. But we know for sure that turnout is only 60, 70, 80%. There are
That's right.
anywhere between 20 to 40% people who actually do not go out and vote. So a significant chunk of people whom we assess in the trackers actually do not go out and vote. So
Right.
how
They
to
have never
assess
voted, maybe.
and they never vote anyway. So we have induced a lot many testers and markers where we now flow with the trend that's saying that asking that there are people who do not vote, and it's okay not voting. There are people for many reasons. Have you considered not voting, and what would be the reason not voting? So basically, trying to assess how inclined the voter is actually to go out and vote on that day. And that is very important for us to understand because of a simple fact that many elections now we are studying, particularly in the Lok Sabha, we could figure out many states in a very good way where we successfully got the numbers right, you know, that the turnout factor, that the intent to vote for a party and intent to definitely go out and vote for a party are two different things.
Okay.
So we are all trying these things. We'll keep on learning. These are the things which we have to go in. But at the end of the day, there would be always an X factor, not of the public opinion and public perception, but X factor of micromanagement and mismanagement.
Right.
Now, I'm sorry in advance that under no sun, you know, the data can help on that. This is something which data can generically tell you, for which the data, by the way, should be ideally analyzed, and you know, even the exit poll or post poll data of what happened, why happened, what were the issues, and why the people voted, rather than this almost mockery of data in over enthusiastic approach of Indian channels on the seat share projection, and that is something which has to be curbed, you know, in a very polite way, making audience understand this with full integrity and honesty, that what are the limitations that we are doing, and also making the polling industry and pollsters accountable for. For example, it pains me to say this, but Press Council of India has guidelines for opinion polls and exit polls, but media houses do not follow those guidelines. And very simple guidelines, starting with who commissioned the poll, what was the methodology, what is the track record of the agency, how long they have been working in the field, basic pieces of information. Now, Unfortunately, almost 7 out of the 10 polling that you see the numbers on, they do not even provide you the vote share, which is the basic. You
There,
cannot give a seat share if you have not vote share, right? If you have not collected vote share, I mean, or got into vote share, how can you predict the seat share? So somewhere this press council of guidelines are very clear on these things, which I would request my media friends to actually enforce on. Please do that, because I sometimes feel even guilty of coming and you know becoming answerable to misdeeds of many others while I am not an industry spokesperson. You see, I can be held accountable and
right.
answerable for something which I have done wrong, or I got it wrong, or my approach was wrong. I am more than happy to analyze, share in most transparent way what went wrong and what went right for us. If I got it wrong, I will say sorry. I'm sorry about that. But I'm sorry, I will not say sorry for others, who did not
Right.
correctly. So
Television channel needs to be more careful. They have to also ensure that there are some TV channels which are very large TV channels which have engaged polling agencies which do not have a good track record, who do not have the right kind of background, who do not have the competence which is visible by their CV. I'm not talking in terms of degrees and diplomas. I'm talking in terms of
yeah.
the experience of understanding the
And
science of
brother,
Indian
this doesn't mean that no new agency should not be welcome. No,
No, no,
100 other
definitely.
new agencies should be welcome. But there is no harm in saying that this is the first exercise of this agency. This is the
Yes.
margin of error. These many samples are collected. This is the vote share projection, and then finally the seat share projection. You
Yes.
just cannot throw the seat projection on our faces and say this is a survey and this is an
This is
exit
it.
poll. I'm sorry, it is not.
Well, unfortunately, TV channels are also having a lot of pressure to try to show the seat share the first before the rival channel puts those figures out. We also need to understand as to how the journalists need to improve their reportage, but for that, we will talk about on another day after another election with you, hopefully in the future.